Hi students, distance, speed and time is what we are going to study in this lecture. At what speed the Shatabdi Express moves, what is the distance between Mumbai and Delhi station, or we may even calculate the time taken to go from your house to your nearest favorite market. So, these type of questions intrigue us all the time. In this lecture, we will understand how to find answer to such questions. We will discuss about the relation between distance, speed and time. Also, we shall understand what is average and relative speed. We shall also study about the trains, upstream and downstream rowing, and some of the very interesting cases that occur in races. So let's proceed. So first of all, let's take a very basic example. Let us say that we have a car that is moving on this road. Now, let us say that this building is the initial point for this car. So, this car starts its journey from the initial point. And let us say that it moves to this place. And let us say that this is the final point. So, this very car has covered this particular distance between the initial point and the final point. And we also know the time taken by this car to reach from the initial point to the final point. Now, what is the speed of the car? So we know the distance and we know the time, but we do not know the speed of the car. So now how to calculate the speed of this car? Let's take one more example. Let us say that we have a flight from Delhi to Mumbai. Now it goes from Delhi to the Mumbai airport. We know the distance between Delhi and Mumbai airport, and we also know the speed at which the aeroplane travels. So what is the time taken by the aeroplane to reach Mumbai from Delhi? Now here, in this case, we know the distance as well as we know the speed, but we do not know how much time it would take. This is also an example of a problem that appears in distance, speed and time. Let us say that we have a cyclist who is moving along this hill. Now in this very case, if we know the speed of the cyclist and the time taken by the cyclist, then what is the distance traveled by the cyclist? Now in this very case, we know the speed of the cyclist and we also know the time taken by the cyclist. But now how to calculate the actual distance traveled by the cyclist along the hill? So these were some of the very basic questions regarding the concepts of speed, distance and time. If we know any two quantities, is it possible to determine the third quantity? In fact, it is. There is a particular relation between distance, speed and time. And throughout our chapter, we are going to stick to that particular relation. So let's find out what is this relationship. So the basic formula in this entire chapter relating to the distance, speed and time, and that is distance is equal to speed into time. So the relation between distance, speed and time is distance is equal to speed into time. So multiply speed by time, you'll get the distance. So if we know any of these two quantities, it's very easy to calculate the third one using this formula. Now here, important thing is, we should always keep in mind the units. Distance means measurement of length. So its unit would be either meter, centimeter, kilometer or millimeter. Speed is the distance traveled per unit time. So it would be either in kilometer per hour, or it would be meter per second, or it could be centimeter per second and so on. And time is always denoted in units of either hour or seconds or minutes. So these are the units of distance, speed and time. And while applying this formula, we should be very careful with the units. So if we have distance in kilometer and time in hour, then speed would be in kilometer per hour. If we have distance in meter and time in second, then the speed would be meter per second. So taking care of units is very important while applying this formula. So now we are going to see how this basic formula helps us to solve some very complicated problems. So the basic formula is distance is equal to speed into time. Now there are three cases. Case 1 is speed is constant. So if we say that if we maintain the speed at a particular level, or if the speed is constant, then let's see what happens. Then in this case, distance is proportional to time. So if the speed is constant, distance would always be proportional to time. So there is a direct variation between distance and time, and we have already studied about direct variation in our chapter on ratio and proportion. Now if we say that we have traveled a particular distance t1 in time t1, and let us say that we have traveled another distance d2 in the time t2. Then what is the relation between d1, d2, t1 and t2? In this case, t1 by d2 would be equal to t1 by t2, as distance and time are directly proportional to each other. Therefore, the ratio of the two distances t1 and t2 would be equal to the ratio of these times. To understand it more clearly, let's take an example. Let us say that we have a truck that is traveling on this road, and let us say that this is point A, this is point B, and this is point C. Now, the truck moves from A to B, and let us say that this distance AB is equal to 20 kilometers. The time taken by the truck to go from A to B is equal to 40 minutes. Now again, the truck moves from B to C, and let us say that this very distance from B to C is equal to 30 kilometers. Now, what is the time taken by the truck to go from B to C? In this problem, we can directly see that the speed of the truck remains constant. So when speed is constant, we know that distance is proportional to time, and in such case, t1 by d2 should be equal to t1 by t2. Your d1 is equal to 20 kilometers, d2 is equal to 30 kilometers, t1 is equal to 40 minutes, and we do not know the value of t2. So 20 by 30 would be equal to 40 by t2, and from this we get t2 equal to 60 minutes. So the truck takes 60 minutes to go from B to C. So this is a case where speed is constant. So whenever speed is constant, then distance is always directly proportional to time. Again, the same formula, distance equal to speed into time. Now let's move on to case number 2, and this case is when time is constant. Earlier we had taken the case that speed is constant. Now let us say that the time is constant. So in this formula, if we keep time constant, then distance would be proportional to. So let us say that we have covered a distance t1 with the speed of s1, and we have covered a distance t2 at the speed of s2. Now what is the relation between d1, s1, d2 and s2? Again, using the formula of direct variation, we get d1 by d2 equal to s1 by s2. So the ratio of the distances traveled is equal to the ratio of the speeds. So once again, let's take an example. Let us say that we have got two cars, and the first car is at the point A and the second car is at a point B. Now let us say that the speed of this car is 50 kilometers per hour towards B, and the speed of this car is 75 kilometers per hour towards A. Now both these cars travel towards each other simultaneously, and let us say that they meet at a point C. Now if I ask you, what is the ratio of the distances traveled by the yellow car and this blue car? Now let us say that AC is equal to D1, BC is equal to D2. Now what is an important fact here? The important thing is the time is constant. Why? Because both of these cars have taken the same time. So the time taken is constant, and we know that when the time taken is constant, then the ratio of distances would be equal to the ratio of speeds, as these two cars start simultaneously and they stop simultaneously. So time is constant. Again, we use the formula d1 by d2 is equal to s1 by s2. So d1 by d2 would be equal to 50 divided by 75, and that is equal to 2 by 3. So the ratio of distances AC to BC is equal to 2 by 3. So they are in the ratio of 2:3, and this is a case where time is constant. Again, the same formula, distance equal to speed into time, and we are going to look at case number 3, and this is where the distance is constant. Now we are going to keep the distance constant, and let's see what is the relation between speed and time. In such a case, speed is inversely proportional to time. When we keep the distance constant in this equation, we get speed into time equal to constant, and so we can say speed is inversely proportional to time. Again, let us say that in the speed s1 we have traveled for the time t1, and for the speed s2 we have traveled for the time t2. Now what is the relation between s1, t1, s2 and t2? This relation would be s1 by s2 is equal to t2 by t1, not t1 by t2. The relation between speed and time is that both are inversely proportional to each other when the distance is constant. So when the distance is constant, then speed is always inversely proportional to time. To understand this condition, let's take an example. Let us say that we have a boy going from home to his school. And in the first instant, let us say that he travels at a speed of 10 kilometers per hour and time taken for him to go from his home to the school is 40 minutes. Speed is 10 kilometers per hour and the time is equal to 40 minutes. Now in the next day, again, the boy goes from his home to the school. But now he travels at a lesser speed. And let us say that the speed this time is equal to 8 kilometers per hour. But now what is the time taken by the cyclist to go from his home to the school? So we see that the earlier case, the speed was 10 kilometers per hour and the time taken for the cyclist or the boy to go from home to the school was 40 minutes. Now the speed has reduced and it has become 8 kilometers per hour. You have to calculate what is the time taken by this boy. The important fact to be noted is the distance between the home and the school would always be the same. So what we can say? We can say in any of the situations, the distance would always remain same or the distance remains constant. And if the distance remains constant, then speed is inversely proportional to the time. So using that relation, what we get? S1 by S2 equal to T2 by T1. Substituting the values, we get 10 by 8 equal to T2 by 40. And from this, we get the value of T2 equal to 50 minutes. So this is an example where the distance is constant. Now we shall study a very important concept in this chapter, which is known as the average speed. Now how is this average speed calculated? The average speed is given by the formula average speed equal to total distance travelled divided by the total time taken. So average speed is simply a speed which is equal to the total distance travelled divided by the total time taken. Now why we have written total distance upon total time? This is because it might be possible that the body does not keep its speed constant. It may change from time to time. So if we say that a body travels a d1 distance in t1 time, then the d2 distance in t2 time, d3 distance in t3 time, and so on. So the total distance would be d1 plus d2 plus d3 and so on, and the total time would be t1 plus t2 plus t3 and so on. So this total distance divided by the total time will give you the average speed for the entire journey covering d1, d2, d3 and so on distance. The individual speeds will differ, but the average speed gives us an overall indication of the speed covered in this entire journey. Now let's take an example to understand the difference between the average speed and the individual speeds. So let us say that this man travels from this hotel to his house or his apartment. Let us say that this distance is equal to 100 kilometers, and now without taking a break, this man goes from hotel to his apartment, and let us say that the time taken is equal to 2 hours. Now the total distance travelled is 100 kilometers and the total time taken is equal to 2 hours. So the average speed would be 100 divided by 2 equal to 50 kilometers per hour. So without any doubt, we can say that the average speed is equal to 50 kilometers per hour for this entire journey, because using the formula we have calculated that average speed is equal to the total distance travelled divided by the total time taken. Now let's take one more case in which the situation is the same, but here there are traffic lights or traffic signals. So the man has to stop at each of these signals. So again the total distance would be 100 kilometers. So he goes from this place to the first traffic signal, second traffic signal, third traffic signal and so on, and he waits at these signals, and finally he reaches his apartment. Now the time taken is equal to 2.5 hours. So let us say that the total time taken is 2.5 hours. He has stopped for extra 30 minutes in these traffic lights. Now what is the average speed of his entire journey? This average speed comes out to be equal to 100 divided by 2.5, which is equal to 40 kilometers per hour. Now we see that because he has stopped for 30 extra minutes, his average speed now has reduced to 40 kilometers per hour. In this first case, the average speed is 50 kilometers per hour. Is it true that this man has travelled at a constant speed of 50 kilometers per hour from his hotel to the apartment? No, it may not be possible. This is because he might have attained a speed of 60 kilometers per hour during some time, and due to traffic he had to reduce it to 40 kilometers per hour. but actually the average value would be 50 kilometers per hour. It is not always that he has traveled at a constant speed of 50 kilometers per hour. The individual speeds at different instants may vary, maybe more than average or less than average. But if we look at the entire time taken and the total distance traveled, then the average value would be 50 kilometers per hour. Similarly, in this case, he might have traveled at speeds of 60 or 70 kilometers per hour, but he had to stop for some time. So we've seen that the average value takes into consideration the total time of travel. Here we have to include those extra 30 minutes for which he has stopped at the traffic signals or due to the traffic congestion in the road. So his average speed reduces to 40 kilometers per hour. It might be possible that he has traveled for 60 kilometers or 70 kilometers per hour at some time in his journey. So that's the basic difference between average speed and the individual speeds at different instants. So if one is given an average speed, it gives you an overall indication. It doesn't give you the exact measurement of the speeds at different instants. Now we've studied about the concept of average speed. Let's take an example now. To qualify for a race, you need to average 60 km per hour driving 2 laps around a 1 km long track. You have some sort of engine difficulty in the first lap, so that you only average 30 km per hour during that lap. How fast do you have to drive the second lap to average 60 km for both of them? So in this problem, if you want to qualify for a race, you need to have an average speed of 60 km per hour in which you have got to cover 2 laps, 1 km each. Now, in the first lap, due to some difficulty in the engine, you could only average 30 km per hour. Now you have to find out how fast you have to travel in the second lap so that your overall average for both the laps is 60 km per hour. So now let's see how to do that. Average speed should be 60 km per hour given to us. So for the average speed for both these laps should be 60 km per hour. Time to be taken is equal to 2 divided by 60. So how much time do you need? You need 2 divided by 60 because each of the lap is 1 km long. So 2 divided by 60 would be 1 by 30 hours, and 1 by 30 hours is nothing but equal to 2 minutes. So in order to have an average speed of 60 km per hour to qualify, you need to cover these 2 laps in 2 minutes. Now, time taken in the first lap is, because he has traveled at a speed of 30 km per hour for 1 km, so the time taken in the first lap would be 1 by 30, which is equal to 2 minutes. So you actually need 2 minutes to travel these 2 entire laps, but you have taken 2 minutes for traveling the first lap. Is it possible for you now to qualify the race? No, it would never be possible to qualify for the race because you have already taken the 2 minutes. So this was an interesting problem. From the problem, it seemed that it is possible to cover up that loss in the second lap, but in reality, it's not even possible because you won't be even able to drive the second lap as per the conditions given in the problem. Let's solve one more example. A car travels 30 kilometers at a speed of 60 kilometers per hour and another 40 kilometers at the speed of 20 kilometers per hour. Find the average speed of the car for the entire journey. So, in this problem, we have been given that a car travels 30 kilometers at a speed of 60 kilometers per hour and it travels the other 40 kilometers at the speed of 20 kilometers per hour. Here the speed has reduced from 60 to 20. We have to find out the average speed of the car for the entire journey. Now how to do that? Let's first try to analyze the situation. The car is traveling a first set of distance which is 30 kilometers and at a speed of 60 kilometers per hour. Now he covers another distance which is 40 kilometers and at a speed of 20 kilometers per hour. We have to find out the average speed of this car in this entire journey of 30 plus 40, which is 70 kilometers. Now let's see what is the total distance traveled. This distance is equal to 30 plus 40. 30 plus 40 equal to 70 kilometers. So the total distance is 70 kilometers. Now what is the total time taken by this man? Now the time taken to cover these 30 kilometers at a speed of 60 km per hour would be 30 by 60. Distance upon speed is time. So that would be equal to 30 by 60. The time taken for the car to travel from this point to this point, which is 40 kilometers at a speed of 20 kilometers per hour, would be 40 by 20. this is 1 by 2 hours and this is 2 hours. So in all we get total time taken to be 2.5 hours. So the total distance traveled is 70 kilometers and the total time taken is 2.5 hours. And what is the formula for average speed? Average speed is equal to total distance traveled divided by total time taken. The total distance is 70 kilometers and the total time is 2.5. So 70 divided by 2.5 is equal to 28 kilometers per hour. So now you see why we have used the term total distance upon total time, because in most of the situations you can see that the distance is divided into parts and these distances are traveled at different speeds. So to calculate the overall speed, you need to have the total distance traveled and you need to have the total time taken. In this particular case, the speed for this distance is 60 kilometers per hour and the speed for this distance is 20 kilometers per hour. The average speed would not be 60 plus 20 divided by 2, which is equal to 40. Actually, the speed is 28 kilometers per hour. And why? Because the formula for average speed is total distance upon total time. So if you know the individual speeds, you cannot simply use a formula for average that adding all these speeds and dividing by the total number of such speeds will give you the average speed. Actually, the average speed would be total distance traveled upon the total time taken. You have to use this very formula. So always calculate the total distance and always calculate the total time. Then divide these two quantities, you will get the average speed. The next very important concept in this chapter is the concept of relative speed. Now this is something I really want you to understand it very clearly, because in situations where this can be applied, it makes the problem very easy to attempt and very quickly you can get to the answer of the problem. So please try to understand it very clearly. What is relative speed? So relative speed is the speed of a body with respect to an observer who is himself moving. So what is relative speed? Relative speed is the speed of a body with respect to an observer. Now we are going to calculate the speed of any object with respect to an observer who is observing that body, and it might be possible that the observer himself is moving. Let me ask you something. Whenever you are traveling in a train, have you ever looked out of the window? You might have, and you would have observed that it seems that the trees and the buildings tend to move backward. You actually feel that these objects are moving in the opposite direction to the direction of the train. But in reality, these trees and the buildings are stationary. They are not moving at all. But when you are traveling in a train, you are moving along with the train. So it seems that these bodies are moving in the opposite direction. Now why does this happen? This all happens because of the concept of relative speed. When the observer is himself moving, there is apparent change in the speed of the objects. So let's try to analyze the situation. Let us say that there are two cars which are traveling on the road, and let us say that the speed of this car is 15 meters per second and the speed of this car is 10 meters per second. Now, velocity of red car with respect to the green car, that is, if he is an observer, then according to him, the velocity of this car would be 5 meters per second. Actually, in reality, the car is moving at a speed of 15 meters per second. But this person who is actually himself moving at a speed of 10 meters per second would feel that this car is moving at a speed of 5 meters per second. And similarly, for this person who is moving in this red car would feel that the green car is moving with a speed of minus 5 meters per second. That is, this car is moving in the opposite direction at a speed of 5 meters per second. So for him, it would seem that this car is moving backwards, but in reality, this car is moving forward with respect to the road. This all happens because of the concept of relative speed. It all depends on the observer. The frame of reference in which the observer is sitting brings into account the apparent change. Let's view the relative speed from a different angle. Relative speed of A with respect to B is the speed of A if B is assumed to be rest. So, if we say that B is the observer, then the relative speed of A with respect to B would be the speed of A if we assume that B is at rest. So, whenever we want to find out the relative speed of A with respect to B, we have to assume or we have to bring B to rest, and similar changes have to be made to A to find out the relative speed. Now how to do that? How to bring B to rest? Let's try to understand this. Again, let us say that these two cars are moving. The red one is moving at a speed of 15 meters per second and the green one is moving at a speed of 10 meters per second. Now let's try to find out the relative speed with respect to this man who is driving this green car. Now this car is a frame of reference. This observer is sitting in this car, which is itself moving at a speed of 10 meters per second. Now we have seen that to find out the relative speed, we have to bring this car to rest. So what we do is, we apply a negative speed of 10 meters per second in this direction, because actually it is moving in this direction. So we apply a negative speed of 10 meters per second in the opposite direction. So these two speeds cancel each other and thus this object comes to rest. Now similar speed has to be applied to this car as well. We have applied 10 meters per second in this direction to this car to bring it to rest. So similar negative speed has to be applied to this car as well. Now this car is moving at a speed of 15 meters per second in the left, and we have applied a 10 meters per second speed to the right. So 15 minus 10 would be equal to 5 meters per second in the right to left direction. So what we can say, the speed of red car with respect to the green car is 5 meters per second. So the relative speed of the red car with respect to the green car would be 5 meters per second. That is, it would seem this way. This car is standing on the road and this car is moving at a speed of 5 meters per second in the forward direction. So according to him, it would seem that this car is moving in the forward direction with a speed of 5 meters per second. But in reality, the red car is moving at a speed of 15 meters per second with respect to the road. Just because the green car is also traveling at a speed of 10 meters per second, according to him, this car would seem to travel at a speed of 5 meters per second. Now let's try to find out what is the relative velocity of the green car with respect to the red car. So in this case, what we are going to do, again the green car is moving at a speed of 10 meters per second and the red car is moving at a speed of 15 meters per second. What we do is, we try to bring this red car to rest because the observer here is now sitting in the red car. So what we do, we apply a 15 meters per second speed in the opposite direction. So we apply the speed in the right side, and so 15 minus 15 would be equal to 0, and thus it comes to rest. Similar sort of speed has to be applied to this car as well. Now it is moving at 10 meters per second in the forward direction, and now we have applied 15 meters per second speed in the opposite direction. So the resultant would be 5 meters per second. So speed of the green car with respect to the red car would be 10 minus 15 equal to minus 5 meters per second. So now minus 5 meters per second represents that this is moving at a speed of minus 5 meters per second in this direction. So the car would seem to travel this way in the backward direction, or in the direction opposite to the direction of this car. So we have brought the red car to the rest and applied the same speed to the green car. The resultant would be the relative velocity of the green car with respect to this red car. So this is the concept of relative speed. How to calculate the relative speed with respect to an observer who himself is moving or who is at rest. So VAB is equal to VA minus VB. What is VAB? It is the speed of A with respect to B. And so the speed of A with respect to B would be equal to the speed of A with respect to the ground minus speed of B with respect to the ground. So it is simply the difference. So the speed of A with respect to P would be speed of A with respect to the ground minus the speed of B with respect to the ground. Let us take case 1, and this case says that if the point of observation is moving in the same direction as the observed body, then the relative speed of the body is given by the speed of the body minus the speed of point of observation. So if we say that the point of observation is moving in the same direction as the observed body, then the relative speed of the body is given by the speed of body minus the speed of point of observation. So relative speed would be equal to S, which is equal to S1 minus S2. It is simply the difference of both their speeds. The speed of the body which is being observed minus the speed of point of observation. The second case is if the point of observation is moving in the opposite direction as the observed body, then the relative speed of the body is given by the speed of the body plus the speed of point of observation. So in this very case, if the point of observation is moving in the opposite direction as the observed body, then we have the relative speed of the body is given by the speed of body plus the speed of point of observation. So relative speed would be equal to s, which is equal to s1 plus s2. So in this case, the speed of the point of observation and the speed of the body which is being observed both gets added. So the relative speed when the two bodies are moving in the opposite direction is equal to s1 plus s2, and the relative speed when the two bodies are traveling in the same direction is s1 minus s2. Relative speed and velocity is a bit complicated concept, but as far as time, distance and speed is concerned and our syllabus is concerned, we just need to focus on these two things, the case 1 and case 2. The two bodies are moving in the same direction, then the relative speed would be equal to s1 minus s2. That is, we subtract both these speeds, and when these two bodies are traveling in the opposite directions, then the speeds get added. So this is what we need to remember as far as our syllabus is concerned. I really hope you have understood the relative speed and these two cases when the bodies are traveling in the opposite direction and when they are traveling in the same direction. Now let's take a few examples to understand how we can use the concept of relative speed in the problems on distance, speed and time. This problem says that plane A leaves Los Angeles for New York at the speed of 500 miles per hour. At the same time, plane B leaves from New York for Los Angeles at the speed of 650 miles per hour. Assume that the distance from Los Angeles to New York is 3000 miles. Find how long it will take them to meet. This problem is very clear. It says that there's a plane A which flies from Los Angeles to New York at the speed of 500 miles per hour, and at the same time there's another plane B that leaves from New York for Los Angeles at the speed of 650 miles per hour. It is given that the distance between Los Angeles and New York is 3000 miles. We have to find out how long will it take them to meet, or after what time they are going to meet each other. Let's look at the solution. We'll call the planes P1 and P2, and let us say that the distances, times and speeds P D1, D2, T1, T2 and S1 and S2 respectively. So let us say that the two planes are P1 and P2, and let us say that the distances, speeds and times are T1, D2, T1, T2 and S1 and S2 respectively. Now S1 is given to be 500 miles per hour and S2 is given to be 650 miles per hour. So the speed of first plane is 500 miles per hour and the speed of second plane is 650 miles per hour. Now D1 plus D2 is equal to 3000 miles because it is given that the total distance between New York and Los Angeles is equal to 3000 miles. Here D1 is the distance traveled by plane P1 in the time T1, and distance T2 is the distance traveled by P2 in time T2. But now as these two planes start simultaneously and they meet each other at the same instant, so the total time of travel or the duration of flight would both be equal, and let us say that that is equal to t. So t1 is equal to t2 equal to t. Now d1 plus d2 would be equal to s1 into t plus s2 into t. The distance traveled by p1 would be s1 into t. S1 is the speed at which it travels and t is the time taken, plus s2 into t would similarly be the distance traveled by plane p2 the time t, and this should be equal to 3000. So t times s1 plus s2 is equal to 3000. We know the value of s1 and we know the value of s2, so t would be equal to 3000 divided by 500 plus 650, and so we say that the total time taken for them to meet is equal to 3000 divided by 1150 hours. So this is the time taken by both these planes to meet each other. Now this is the first approach through which we have solved this problem. Let's see the second approach, and this approach is the concept of relative speed. How the concept of relative speed makes this problem very easy to solve. The relative speed in this case would be s1 plus s2, as both these planes are moving in the opposite directions, so their speeds get added. So the relative speed would be equal to 500 plus 650, which is equal to 1150 miles per hour. So the relative speed is 1150 miles per hour. Total distance is d1 plus d2, which is equal to 3000 miles, already given in the problem. So simply time taken would be distance divided by the relative speed. So the time taken for both these planes to meet each other would be the total distance divided by the relative speed, and so we get the value of t equal to 3000 divided by 1150 hours. So which approach is easier? Of course the second one, because it simply gives you the answer in two steps. First you calculate the relative speed, and in the second step you simply divide the distance by the relative speed. That would give you the time. So this is how the concept of relative speed is used in problem on distance, speed and time. Let's see one more example. It seems to be a very lengthy problem. Let's try to explore what it is. Two trains start towards each other at the same time, just like your two planes do. One is going at 90 miles per hour and the other is going at a speed of 60 miles per hour. The distance between them is 3000 miles. A really fast and tireless bee starts when they do at the front of one of them and flies at 300 miles towards the other. When it gets to the second train, it immediately turns and flies back towards the first, and when it gets to it, it turns and flies back again, and always flying back and forth between the two trains as they speed towards each other. How far will the bee travel altogether before it is squished between the two trains, which are unfortunately on the same track? So this problem says that we have got two trains, and these two trains are traveling in the opposite direction but on the same track. Now the speed of one of the trains is 90 miles per hour and the speed of the other train is 60 miles per hour, and the distance between them is 3000 miles. Now there's a bee flies at a speed of 300 miles per hour. Now note that the speed of the bee is very much larger than the speed of these trains. So what does this bee do is, it is sitting in the front portion of one of the trains, and what it does is, it travels towards the other train at the speed of 300 miles per hour, reaches the other train, then again it returns back to the first train, again it travels to the second train, again it comes back to the first train, and so on. It keeps on going back and forth between these two trains. Now as these two trains are moving towards each other, of course they are going to collide. We have to find out the total distance this bee would travel just before it is squished between these two trains. So how are you going to solve this problem? It seems to be a complicated problem. No, it is not. It is a very simple problem. Let's try to first analyze the situation. Let us say that these are the two trains and they are traveling on the same track. The speed of the first train is 60 miles per hour and the speed of the second train is 90 miles per hour. Now let us say that this bee is at this train initially. It is also given that the speed of this bee is 300 miles per hour. Now what does this bee do is, it travels from this train to this train and again comes back to this train. It again follows the same cycle. It goes from this train to this train and it again comes back to this train. Also in the meanwhile, these two trains are traveling towards each other. So the relative distance between these two trains is decreasing every time. We have to find out the total distance traveled by this bee during this time before these two trains collide with each other. Now the total distance between the two trains is given to be 3000 miles initially. So the initial distance between these two trains is equal to 3000 miles. Now the relative speed of these two trains would be 90 plus 60. Now as these two trains are moving in the opposite direction, so the relative speed would be the sum of both these speeds, which is 90 plus 60, and this comes out to be equal to 150 miles per hour. So the relative speed is equal to 150 miles per hour. Now the time taken for them to collide would be distance divided by the relative speed we have already seen in the previous problem. So that would be equal to 3000 divided by 150, and which is equal to 20 hours. The time taken for both these trains to collide with each other is equal to 20 hours. And this is actually the time for which the bee is traveling. So the bee is traveling at a speed of 300 miles per hour and it is also traveling for 20 hours. So now what would be the distance? Distance traveled by bee would be simply the product of speed and time, and that is equal to 300 into 20, which is equal to 6000 miles. So you see that the bee would travel 6000 miles before these two trains collide with each other or before it is squished between these two trains. So whenever you have been given there are two objects that are moving in opposite direction and we know their initial distance, then their time of meeting would simply be distance divided by the relative speed, and this relative speed would be simply the sum of both these speeds because they are traveling in opposite directions. When the two objects going to meet each other, then simply use the concept of relative speed. It is simple, distance divided by the relative speed. Add these two speeds to get the relative speed, so you'll get the time which both these objects are going to meet each other. Now we shall study a very special case. Many of the objective questions on time, speed and distance come directly from this special case. Now what is this special case? Let us say that we have 2 points x and y. Let us say that there are two bodies A and B. Now let us say that the speed of A from x to y is SA and the speed of B from y to x is SP. So both these objects are moving towards each other this way. Now let us say that the point at which these two objects meet is C. Now further they translate their motions and A reaches y and B reaches x. Now if I say that the time taken by A to go from C to y is TA and the time taken by B to move from C to x is TB, then the ratio of SA to SB is equal to under root of TB divided by TA. So this is a very special case in which if we have got two bodies A and B moving towards each other with SA and SP speeds respectively, and if the time taken by A from C to Y, C is the point of their meeting, is TA, and the time taken by B to go from C to X is TB, then SA by SP is equal to under root of TB by TA. So based on the above special case, let's solve an example. Ramesh and Karthik start walking towards each other from Shishapuram and Jayanagar respectively. The speeds are 5 meters per second and 3 meters per second. After the meet at Hudson Circle, Ramesh reaches Jayanagar in 2 hours. How long after the meet will Karthik reach Shishapuram? So in this problem we have been given that there are two persons, Ramesh and Karthik, and they start walking towards each other. Ramesh from the point Shishapuram and Karthik from the point Jayanagar. The speed of Ramesh is 5 meters per second and the speed of Karthik is 3 meters per second. Now they meet at the point Hudson Circle, which is somewhere between Shishapuram and Jayanagar. It is given that Ramesh reaches Jayanagar from Hudson Circle in 2 hours. We have to find out how long will Karthik reach Shishapuram after they meet each other, or the time taken by Karthik to go from Hudson Circle to Shishapuram. So again this is all based on the case we have just discussed. So SR by SK would be equal to under root of TK by TR, where SR is the speed of Ramesh, SK is the speed of Karthik, TK is the time taken by Karthik to go from Hudson Circle to Shishapuram, and TR is the time taken by Ramesh to go from Hudson Circle to Jayanagar. So SR is 5 meters per second and SK is 3 meters per second. So this is 5 by 3 equal to under root of TK by 2. The time taken by Ramesh is 2 hours. This further gives TK equal to 2 into 25 by 9 hours, or equal to 50 by 9 hours. Thus the time taken by Karthik to go from Hudson Circle to Shishapuram is 50 by 9 hours. And so simply using the formula for this special case, we have solved this problem. So you see, in objective problems, if such type of problem appears, directly use this result to get the answer very quickly. Now it's very important to understand the conversion of speeds. In the starting of the lecture, I told you it's very important for us to keep in mind the dimensions of the quantities we are talking about. If the distance is in kilometers and the time is in hours, then the speed must be in kilometers per hour. And if it is in meters and seconds, then the speed has to be meters per second. In many of the problems, the distance might be given in meters and you are given the speed in kilometers per hour. In such problems, the first step should be conversion of the speed in kilometers per hour to meters per second. Now how to convert a speed given in kilometers per hour to meters per second? Let's try to see that. Simply multiply the speed in kilometers per hour by 5 by 18 to get the speed in meters per second. So whenever you are given a speed in kilometers per hour, simply multiply it by 5 by 18 and you'll get the speed in meters per second. So this was the conversion of speed from kilometers per hour to meters per second. Similarly, let's see the conversion of speed in meters per second to kilometers per hour. And for that, what you got to do is multiply the speed in meters per second by 18 by 5 to get the speed in kilometers per hour. So simply multiply the speed in meters per second by 18 by 5, and this would give you the speed in kilometers per hour. Now you might be confused where to multiply by 5 by 18 or where to multiply by 18 by 5. Always remember, the speed in meters per second would be less in magnitude as compared to speed in kilometers per hour. So if we are given a speed in kilometers per hour, then in meters per second it should be less, and so we are going to multiply it by 5 by 8. But when we are given the speed in meters per second, then the speed in kilometers per hour should be greater than the speed in meters per second in terms of the magnitude. So what you do is you simply multiply it by 18 by 5 so as to increase its magnitude, so that the speed becomes in kilometers per hour. So taking some of the speeds practice, how to convert one unit of speed into the other. We've seen so much of theory, let's try to solve a few examples. A man rode out a certain distance by train at a rate of 25 km an hour and walked back at the rate of 4 km per hour. The whole journey took 5 hours and 48 minutes. What distance did he ride? So in this problem we have been given that a man rode out a certain distance by train at the rate of 25 km per hour, and then he walked back the same distance at the rate of 4 km per hour. The entire time taken for the man to go from its initial point and come back to its initial point is 5 hours and 48 minutes. We have to find out the distance did he ride. So first of all, let's try to understand the problem. Let us say that the distance is AB, and on which the man goes from A to B and he comes back from B to A. The first time he travels by train, and which is moving at a speed of 25 km per hour. In the return journey, he walks back to A, and this walking speed is 4 km per hour. Let us say that the distance is x kilometers. So the distance AB is equal to x kilometers. Let us suppose that. Now the time spent in journey by train would be x by 25 hours because he is traveling at a speed of 25 km per hour. So the time taken by the person to go from A to B via train is equal to x by 25 hours. Now the time spent in journey by walking. The man walks back from B to A at a speed of 4 km per hour, and the distance is x, so the time would be equal to x by 4 hours. And also given to us is that the total time taken is 5 hours 48 minutes. So what we can write the equation as x by 25 plus x by 4 equal to 5 hours 48 minutes. Now 5 hours 48 minutes is nothing but equal to 29 by 5 hours. So this further becomes 29x by 100 equal to 29 by 5. 29 and 29 gets cancelled, and what we get is 100 divided by 5, which is equal to 20 kilometers. So x is equal to 20 kilometers. Thus our answer is x equal to 20 kilometers. The next problem is a man covers a certain distance between his house and office on scooter. An average speed of 30 km per hour, he is late by 10 minutes. However, with a speed of 40 km per hour, he reaches his office 5 minutes earlier. Find the distance between his house and office. So in this problem, we have been given that there's a man who goes from his house to his office daily. Now, he goes it on his scooter. If he travels with an average speed of 30 km per hour, he is late by 10 minutes. And if he travels with a speed of 40 km per hour, he reaches his office 5 minutes earlier. We have to find out the distance between his office and the house. So let us say that the distance between the office and the house is equal to x kilometers. So let us assume that the distance is equal to x. Now the time taken to cover x kilometers at 30 km per hour is x by 30 hours. Now the time taken for him to cover x kilometer would be x by 30 because his speed is 30 km per hour. Similarly, the time taken to cover x kilometers at 40 km per hour is equal to x by 40 hours. In the second case, he travels at a speed of 40 km per hour. Now, when he travels at a speed of 30 km per hour, he reaches office 10 minutes late, and when he travels at a speed of 40 km per hour, he reaches 5 minutes earlier. So what is the difference? The difference is 15 minutes due to the change in the speed. So what we can say is the difference between the time taken would be 15 minutes. Now 15 minutes is nothing but equal to 1 by 4 hours. So the difference between time taken is equal to 1 by 4 hours. Thus we have x by 30 minus x by 40 equal to 1 by 4. This equation further becomes 4x minus 3x equal to 30, or we get the value of x equal to 30 kilometers. Thus the distance between the office and house comes out to be equal to 30 kilometers. So simply using a bit of logic and reasoning, we have solved this very problem. Now we shall solve a very interesting problem, and it says that the distance between two stations Delhi and Amritsar is 450 kilometers. A train starts at 4 p.m. from Delhi and moves towards Amritsar at an average speed of 60 kilometers per hour. Another train starts from Amritsar at 3:20 p.m. and moves towards Delhi at an average speed of 80 kilometers per hour. How far from Delhi will the two trains meet and at what time? So this is a problem which says that the distance between two stations Delhi and Amritsar is 450 kilometers. Now there's a train that starts at 4 p.m. from Delhi and moves towards Amritsar, and the speed of this train is 60 kilometers per hour. We have got another train that starts from Amritsar at 3:20 p.m. and it moves towards Delhi at a speed of 80 kilometers per hour. We have to find out how far from Delhi will the two trains meet, and we have also got to find out the time at which these two trains meet each other. So let us say that this is the Delhi station and this is the Amritsar station. Now given to us is that the distance between Delhi and Amritsar is equal to 450 kilometers. Now we have a train from Delhi going to Amritsar, and similarly we have a train from Amritsar going to Delhi. The speed of this train which is moving from Delhi to Amritsar is 60 kilometers per hour, and the speed of this train which is moving from Amritsar to Delhi is 80 kilometers per hour. Now at 3:20 p.m. the train from Amritsar starts moving, and at 4 p.m. the train from Delhi starts moving in this way. So at 3:20 p.m. this train starts moving, and at 4 p.m. both of these travels towards each other, and let us say that they meet at this point. We have to find out what is this distance. That is the distance from Delhi to the point where they meet each other. Now first of all we are going to find out the distance travelled by this train in these 40 minutes. In these 40 minutes this train from Delhi to Amritsar hasn't started yet, and so let's find out first the distance travelled by this train which is moving at a speed of 80 kilometers per hour towards Delhi, and let's see what distance has this train moving at a speed of 40 kilometers per hour has travelled during these 40 minutes. So the distance travelled by the second train would be 80 into 40 by 60, which is equal to 160 by 3 kilometers. So the total distance left to be covered is 450 minus 160 by 3. Now this is equal to 1190 by 3 kilometers. So by 4 p.m. this train has travelled a distance of 160 by 3 kilometers, and now the total distance left to be covered would be 450 minus 160 by 3, which is equal to 1190 by 3 kilometers. Now this distance 1190 by 3 kilometers is covered by both these trains, which are moving at a speed of 60 kilometers per hour and the speed of 80 kilometers per hour respectively. So time taken after 4 p.m. to meet each other would be 1190 by 3 divided by 60 plus 80. 60 plus 80 is the relative speed. Both these get added because they are moving in the opposite direction, and the total distance to travel is 1190 by 3. So the time taken after 4 p.m. to meet each other would be 1190 by 3 divided by 60 plus 80. This is equal to 17 by 6 hours, or 2 hours 50 minutes. Or what we can say is the time taken after 4 p.m. to meet each other would be 2 hours 50 minutes. Now the distance from Delhi where they meet would be 60 into the time taken after 4 p.m. where they meet. So that is 17 by 6 hours. We have already calculated that. So 60 into 17 by 6 is the distance travelled by the train from Delhi to Amritsar before they meet each other, and that is equal to 160 kilometers. The distance from Delhi to the point of meeting is equal to 170 kilometers. We've also got to find out at what exact time do they meet each other. We've also seen that they take 17 by 6 hours or 2 hours 50 minutes to meet each other after 4 p.m. So we are going to add these 2 hours 50 minutes to this time 4 p.m. to get The answer is time of meeting equal to 4 hours plus 2 hours 50 minutes, that is equal to 6:50 p.m. So these two trains meet each other at the time 6:50 p.m. So in these type of problems, what you got to do is you've got to use your brain and your reasoning to figure out what exactly is being asked in the problem, and then using the concept of relative speed solve such kind of problems. Most of the questions in time, distance and speed is nothing. It's just that they try to make it complicated by making it too lengthy. But once you start solving, and if your approach is correct, nothing is difficult in the problems on time, speed and distance. And I'll tell you, time, speed and distance is a very important section when we talk of quantitative aptitude. So the key is use the logic, because there's only one formula in time, speed and distance, and that is distance is equal to speed into time. Nothing more than that. Practice a lot of problems, and for that log on to topcoaching.com, and in the mathematics zone you are going to find such many problems. Let's solve one more problem, and it says that when airplane started 30 minutes later than the scheduled time for a place 1500 kilometers away from its destination. To reach the destination at the scheduled time, the pilot had to increase the speed by 250 kilometers per hour. What was the speed of the airplane per hour during the journey? So in this problem, we have been given that there's an airplane that started 30 minutes later than the scheduled departure from a place, and that he had to cover 1500 kilometers. Now in order to reach the destination at the scheduled time, the pilot increased the speed by 250 kilometers per hour. We have to find out what was the speed of the airplane per hour during the entire journey. So let us say that it takes x hours in the second case. Now in the second case, when he has increased the speed by 250 kilometers per hour, let us assume that he takes x hours to reach the destination. So now what we can say is 1500 by x minus 1500 by x plus 1 by 2 is equal to 250. Why? Because the total distance is 1500. The 1500 divided by x would give us the speed of the plane in the second case, and similarly 1500 by x plus 1 by 2 would give us the speed in the first case. So this difference is equal to 250 kilometers per hour, because the pilot has increased the speed by 250 kilometers per hour. This equation further becomes 1500 into x plus 1 by 2 minus 1500x whole divided by x into x plus 1 by 2 equal to 250. This on simplification becomes 750 equal to 250x into x plus 1 by 2. This gives a quadratic equation x square plus x by 2 minus 3 equal to 0. This becomes 2x square plus x minus 6 equal to 0. This could be further factorized as x into 2x minus 3 plus 2 into 2x minus 3 equal to 0. Breaking down into factors, we get x plus 2 into 2x minus 3 equal to 0. Now this gives two values of x, which is x equal to minus 2 and x equal to 3 by 2. Now x can never be a negative quantity. Why? Because time can never be negative. It has got to be positive. So x is equal to 3 by 2 is the only solution. So time taken by the airplane in the second case is 3 by 2 hours. And so the original speed is 1500 divided by 3 by 2 plus 1 by 2, and that is equal to 750 kilometers per hour. So the original speed of the airplane is equal to 750 kilometers per hour. And so very easily we have solved this very problem. Now one of the major topic in this chapter is the trains. Many of the problems are being framed on trains. So we are going to see what's the concept behind such problems which are on trains. Let us say that a train is moving and there's a pole. Now this train crosses this pole. When we say it crosses the pole, it means that the train has completely crossed this pole. So initially its front end is at this position, and finally its end point has reached this position. Now if we say that the length of the train is equal to L units, so if the length is L and the speed with which it is traveling is S, then what is the time taken by the train to cross this pole? Now can you tell me what is the time it takes to cross the pole? Definitely the time taken to cross the pole would be L divided by S. Actually, when it has to cross this entire pole, the train is covering a distance of L units, and so L divided by S, S is the speed of the train, would give us the time taken for the train to cross this pole. So simply divide the length of the train by the speed of the train to get the time taken by the train to cross the pole. Now in many of the problems, you may be given a platform and you may be asked to find out what is the time taken by the train to cross a platform. Now what is the difference between a pole and a platform? Actually, the width of the pole is very negligible, but in the case of platform, you cannot ignore its width. So when I say the train has crossed the platform, then earlier it is in this position, this is the entire length of the train and this is the length of the platform, and finally it moves such that the end point of train has just crossed the end point of the platform. So this is the distance that has to be traveled while crossing a platform. Let us say that the length of train is equal to L1 and the length of the platform is equal to L2. Let us say that the speed of the train is equal to S. Now if I ask you what is the time taken by the train to cross this platform, your answer would be time taken to cross the platform is equal to L1 plus L2 divided by S. Now the effective length that the train has to cover is equal to the length of the train plus the length of the platform or the width of the platform divided by S. S is the speed of the train. So that's the difference between crossing a pole and crossing a platform. Instead of a pole, there could be a man. So the problem may ask you, find the time taken by the train to cross a man. Now you would treat this man as pole and you are going to find out the answer as L by S. On the other hand, in case of platforms or planks, what you got to do is you have to add the length of the platform to the length of the train and then divide it by the speed to get the time taken to cross such a platform or such a plank. Now let's take one more case. Let us say that there's a point object such that it is not stationary this time. So let us say that we have a train and we have an object which is also moving. Now let us say that the speed of this object is S0 and the speed of the train is St. Now if I ask you what is the time taken by the train to cross this object, in this case the situation is different. Here the object also has got the speed, the object is also moving, so it would somehow look like this way. So finally in this position we see that it has crossed this object. Now in this case the time taken to cross each other would be L divided by S0 minus St. Now why we have taken S0 minus St? Because the relative speed now in this case is S0 minus St. Why? Because they are moving in the same direction, and we know that if the two objects are moving in the same direction, then we actually subtract these speeds to get the relative speed, and length that has to be crossed is actually the length of the train. So we can say that the time taken to cross each other is L divided by S0 minus St, or actually it should be L divided by St minus S0, because the speed of the train would of course be greater than S0. So this is a case when the object itself is moving with a speed, but the object doesn't have much of width. It's just like a pole, but this pole is also traveling. For example, if a man is running and the train is moving, then in such a case time taken would be L divided by St minus S0, where St is the speed of the train and S0 is the speed of the man running. Now let's take a case again in which let us say that the object is of negligible dimensions as compared to the train, and this object is also moving along with the train, but the difference here is that this object is moving in this direction and the train is moving in this particular direction. The speed of this object is S0 and the speed of the train is St. So the difference is that the two objects, that is the object and the train, are moving in opposite directions, and we have to find out the time taken to cross each other. So it would be somehow this way. Now of course the time taken in this case would be less. Why? Because the two trains are traveling in opposite directions, and so the relative speeds would be St plus S0, not St minus S0. And so what we get, the time taken to cross each other would be L divided by S0 plus St. Here L is the length of the train, S0 is the speed of the object traveling in the opposite direction to the direction of the train, and St is the speed of the train. Thus time taken to cross each other in this case is L divided by S0 plus St. Now let's take a different case. Here again the object is moving, but this object has got a considerable length, like a platform. So let us say that the other object this time is a train, or it could be a truck, it could be a bus, or it could be any vehicle which is also moving and has got a considerable length to cover. So now in this case, let us say that the two trains are moving in opposite direction and they cross each other. Then what is the time taken by the two trains to cross each other? In this case, let us say that the length of this train is L1 and the length of this train is equal to L2. Let us say that the speed of this train in this direction is S1 and the speed of this train in the right direction is S2. So the time taken to cross each other would be L1 plus L2 divided by S1 plus S2. Why L1 plus L2? Because this is the length of this train and this is the length of this train. We got to add them. This is the effective length that has to be covered, L1 plus L2, and S1 plus S2, because these two trains are moving in the opposite direction, and so we are going to add them. Relative speed is always added when the two objects are moving in opposite direction. So the time taken would be L1 plus L2 divided by S1 plus S2. So if we have got two trains moving in opposite direction, then the time taken to cross each other would be L1 plus L2 divided by S1 plus S2, where L1 and L2 are the lengths of the trains, S1 and S2 are the speeds of these trains in the opposite directions. Now let's take a case in which we have a car that is moving in the same direction as a train and they move in this way. Let us say that the speed of this car is S1 in this direction and the speed of train is S2 in this very direction. They are moving in the same direction. Let us say that the length of the car is L1 and the length of the train is L2. In this case, what is the time taken to cross each other? This time the effective length would be L1 plus L2, but the relative speed would be S2 minus S1. So what we can say, time taken to cross each other would be L1 plus L2 divided by S2 minus S1. S2 minus S1 because they are moving in the same direction. So this is how problems on trains regarding to the length of the train and the time taken to cross a pole or a plank or a platform or any other train which is moving in the same or opposite direction is calculated. Now we have seen some of the very cases on trains. So let's try to solve a few examples based on the concept of trains. A train passes by a stationary man standing on the platform in 7 seconds and passes by the platform completely in 28 seconds. If the length of the platform is 330 meters, what is the length of the train? So in this very problem, we have been given that there's a man who is standing on the platform. Now there's a train that completely passes this man in 7 seconds and the train completely passes the platform in 28 seconds. We have been given that the length of the platform is 330 meters. We have to find out the length of the train. So this is a problem that is directly based on what we have just studied. So let us say that the length of the train is x meters. Now in the first case, the train passes a man in 7 seconds. So the speed of the train would be L by 7. L is length of the train. Here we have assumed it to be x. So the speed of train is equal to x divided by 7 meters per second. Similarly, the train passes a platform which is 330 meters in 28 seconds. So the effective length would be x, that is the length of the train, plus 330 divided by 28 meters per second. So this is the speed of the train in the first case and this is the speed of the train in the second case, but both are the same because they represent the speed of the train, which remains constant. Thus x by 7 is equal to x plus 330 by 28. This further becomes 28x equal to 7x plus 7 into 330, or we get x equal to 3 into 330 by 21, which is equal to 110 meters. Thus the length of the train comes out to be equal to 110 meters. So simply using the concepts of trains that we have just studied, we've solved this very problem. Many of the problems on trains come directly from this section and it is a very easy concept. Now let's solve one more problem. A train overtakes two persons who are walking in the same direction as the train is moving at the rate of 2 km per hour and 4 km per hour and passes them completely in 9 and 10 seconds. Find the speed and the length of the train. So in this problem, what has been given to us is that there are two persons who are walking in the same direction as that of the train and they are moving at the rate of 2 km per hour and 4 km per hour respectively. Now the train crosses the man walking at a speed of 2 kilometers per hour in 9 seconds, and it also crosses the man walking at a speed of 4 kilometers per hour in 10 seconds. We have to find out two things. First, the speed of the train, and the second is we have to find out the length of the train. So, let's again look at the solution. The speed of the two men are 2 km per hour. Now we are going to convert it into meters per second. Now how to do that? Simply multiply it by 5 by 18. So that would be equal to 2 into 5 by 18, which is equal to 5 by 9 meters per second. Similarly, the speed of the second man is 4 kilometers per hour. Again, what we are going to do is we are going to convert it into meters per second by multiplying it by 5 by 18. So 4 into 5 by 18 is equal to 10 by 9 meters per second. So the speed of the first man is 5 by 9 meters per second, and the speed of the second man is 10 by 9 meters per second. Let us say that the speed of the train is x meters per second. So let's assume that the train travels at a speed of x meters per second. Now the relative speeds would be x minus 5 by 9 with respect to this man, which is moving at a speed of 5 by 9 meters per second, and x minus 10 by 9 with respect to the man walking at a speed of 10 by 9 meters per second. Now, length of the train is equal to relative speed into time taken to pass the man. So what is length of the train? Length of the train is relative speed into time taken to pass a man. So that would be equal to x minus 5 by 9 into 9. 9 is the time taken by the train to cross this person, which is moving at a speed of 5 by 9 meters per second. So x minus 5 by 9 into 9 is equal to x minus 10 by 9 into 10. Why? Because this expression gives us the length of the train, because x minus 10 by 9 is the relative speed with respect to this man into 10 seconds. 10 seconds is the time taken by the train to cross this person, would give us the length of the train. So we get the equation as x minus 5 by 9 into 9 equal to x minus 10 by 9 into 10. This becomes x equal to 100 by 9 minus 45 by 9, which is equal to 55 by 9 meters per second. Thus the speed of the train is equal to 55 by 9 meters per second. So we get speed of the train as 55 by 9 into 18 by 5. We are multiplying it by 18 by 5 to convert it into kilometers per hour, and that comes out to be 22 kilometers per hour. So the speed of the train comes out to be 22 kilometers per hour. Now we have to find out the length of the train. The length of the train is given by the expression x minus 5 by 9 into 9. Here we have already seen that. So substituting the value of x, which is 55 by 9, in this expression we get 55 by 9 minus 5 by 9 into 9, which is equal to 50 meters. So the length of the train is equal to 50 meters, and the speed of the train is 22 kilometers per hour. And hence we have solved this problem. Let's try to solve an example, but this problem is not based on the concept we have just studied, that is crossing of a platform or crossing of a pole. In this problem, it says that a train, after traveling 50 kilometers, meets with an accident and then proceeds at 3/4 of its former speed and arrives at its destination 35 minutes late. Had the accident occurred 24 kilometers further, it would have reached the destination only 25 minutes late. The speed of the train is. So in this very problem, we have been given that the train, after traveling 50 kilometers, meets with an accident and its speed reduces to 3/4 of its former speed, and because its speed has reduced, so it takes a longer time, and because of that it arrives its destination late, and that is 35 minutes late. Now, so if the train had traveled 24 kilometers further without accident, then it would have reached the destination only 25 minutes late. We have to find out the speed of the train. So first, let's try to understand this. This is the very first case and this is the second case. Let us say that the train travels at a speed of v kilometers per hour. Now in the first case, it has traveled a distance of 50 kilometers, then it met with an accident, and so its speed now becomes 3/4 of the initial speed, so that would be equal to 3v by 4, and then it reaches its destination. In the second case, the question says that if the train had traveled 24 kilometers more, then it would have reached its destination only 25 minutes late. So now again in the second case, the speed of the train would be v, and it travels 24 kilometers more than the 50 kilometers, and then it meets an accident, and then its speed becomes 3v by 4, and it reaches its destination. Thus, the difference in time is 35 minutes minus 25 minutes equal to 10 minutes. In the first case, it reaches 35 minutes late. In the second case, it reaches 25 minutes late. So actually the difference in time taken is just 10 minutes. And now why this 10 minutes difference is taking place? This is only due to the difference in speeds for the 24-kilometer journey. So only for this very part we see that the difference is coming. For rest of the part, that is this very distance, the speed is 3v/4 in both the cases, but only for this 24-kilometer distance, the speed in the second case is v kilometers per hour and the speed in this case is 3v/4. So what we can say is, let the speed of the train is x kilometer per hour, then 24 by 3x divided by 4 minus 24 by x is equal to 10 by 60. 10 by 60 because we have converted the 10 minutes into hours, so that would be equal to 10 by 60. This becomes 32 minus 24 divided by x equal to 10 by 60. This further gives the value of x equal to 8 into 60 by 10, and this is equal to 48. So the speed of the train is 48 kilometers per hour. So the speed of the train is 48 kilometers per hour. The value of x comes out to be 48 kilometers per hour. Now this problem can also be solved through a very lengthy procedure, but you see the trick is to identify why has the difference in time taken in both the cases, and if you are able to figure out that, then the problem becomes very easy to solve. Let's move on to the next part or the next topic of this chapter, which is boats and streams, and it involves two types of rowing, the downstream rowing and the upstream rowing. Now in these type of problems, there's a boat or a steamer which is moving in water. Now here there are two speeds that we need to consider. The first is the speed of the stream or the water that is flowing, and the speed of the boat in still water. And we are to find out the upstream rowing time, the downstream rowing time, then what is the speed of the boat in still water, or what is the speed of water current. So to answer all these questions, let's first of all try to understand what is downstream rowing. So let us say that the man is rowing his boat in the water. Now in the case of downstream rowing, now let us say that the speed of the boat in still water is when the water is not moving, is equal to Vb. And in the case of downstream rowing, the direction of the water current is the same as the direction of the movement of the boat. The boat is moving in this direction and the water current is also moving in this direction. And let us say that the speed of the water current is Vs. So the speed of boat is Vb and the speed of water current is Vs. Note that in downstream rowing, both the directions of the boat and the stream are the same. They move in the same direction. So in this very case, relative speed would be Vb plus Vs. Now why they are being added? This is because if the water moves in the same direction as a boat, it will carry the boat forward, so it will not resist the boat. In fact, it is going to supplement it. It is going to add an additional speed to the boat, and so the speed or the net speed becomes Vb plus Vs, that is the speed of the boat and the speed of the stream. So this is the downstream rowing. Actually, you might be wondering why we are adding. In the problems on relative velocity, we have subtracted when they were in the same direction. The point is the boat's speed is being added. Actually, the effort to row the boat is reduced because the water is moving in the same direction. So the net speed is more than the speed of the boat, and so that is equal to Vb plus Vs, and that is why in downstream rowing the net effective speed increases, and so it will take lesser time to reach the destination when it is a case of downstream rowing. And downstream rowing is a case when the speed of the boat is in the direction of the speed of the water current. The second is the upstream rowing. Now in this very case, again the boat is being rowed in the water, and let us say that this is the speed of the boat Vb and it is in the left direction. In case of upstream rowing, the direction of the water current is opposite to the direction of the movement of the boat. So in this very case, the stream is moving in the right direction, and so it is opposing the boat. And now when it is opposing the boat, so the net effective speed would be reduced, and thus we get the relative speed in this case as Vb minus Vs. Actually this is with respect to the ground. this speed is not with respect to the water, it is actually with respect to the ground, and so with respect to ground the relative speed would be lesser because there is a resistive speed that is being added in the opposite direction to the speed of the boat. So the relative speed in this very case would be Vb minus Vs. In the case of downstream rowing, we have the relative speed as Vb plus Vs, and in the case of upstream rowing, the relative speed is Vb minus Vs. Just remember, in the case of downstream rowing, they flow in the same direction and so the speeds get added up. In the upstream rowing, they are in the opposite direction and so the speeds get subtracted or they get reduced. Now let us say that this boat starts from this place, goes to this place and finally comes back to its original position, and this is water. Of course there is water current flowing, and let us say that it remains constant throughout. Now let us say that the boat moves in this direction with the speed of x, and let us say that the speed of the water current in the left direction is y. The water current is moving from right to left, and so this becomes the case of upstream rowing, and so the boat moves and reaches this point. Now the t upstream, that is the time taken for rowing upstream, would be d divided by x minus y. D is this very distance, and the speed and the net speed now becomes x minus y as they are in the opposite direction, and it is a case of upstream rowing. So the time taken to row upstream would be d divided by x minus y. Now the boat has to return back, so its speed in this direction is x. Water current flows in the same direction from right to left, and now the boat comes back to its original position. Now this is a case of downstream rowing because both the boat and the stream are moving in the same direction. In this case, t downstream, that is the time taken to row downstream, would be d divided by x plus y. Now can you tell me which time would be more? Of course the time taken to row upstream would be more because this term x minus y is less than x plus y, and so this entire term d divided by x minus 1 would be greater than d divided by x plus y. So time taken to row upstream is always greater than the time taken to row downstream. Now if we divide both these terms and solve it further, what we get the expression as x by y equal to t upstream plus t downstream divided by t upstream minus t downstream. So this is a formula which you can remember, that x by y, x is the speed of the boat in still water and y is the speed of the stream. So x by y is equal to t upstream plus t downstream divided by t upstream minus t downstream. If you know the values of t upstream and t downstream, then you can easily calculate the ratio of speeds of boat and the water current. Now based on the above, let's try to solve an example. What is the average speed of a boat given that a man rows the boat at x km/h in still water, stream current is y km/h, and he travels a distance of d kilometers upstream first and then back to the starting point. So in this problem we have to find out the average speed of the boat, and we have been given that the boat travels at a speed of x km/h in still water, the stream current is y km/h, and the man travels first a distance d kilometers upstream and then he comes back traveling the distance d again downstream. We have to calculate the average speed of the boat. So time taken to cover the distance d upstream would be d divided by x minus y. Now d is the distance that the boat travels upstream, and now the speed would be x minus y because it is a case of upstream rowing. Similarly, time taken to cover the distance d downstream would be d divided by x plus y because this is the expression for time in the case of downstream rowing. The average speed is given by the formula total distance upon total time taken. Now what is the total distance traveled? The total distance traveled is 2d, and the total time taken is the sum of these two expressions, d by x minus y and d by x plus y. So we can say that the average speed is equal to 2d, that is the total distance, divided by total time, which is d by x minus y plus d by x plus y. Now this could be further written as average speed equal to 2 times x plus y into x minus y divided by x plus y plus x minus y, and this finally gives the value as average speed equal to x plus y into x minus y divided by x. So average speed is nothing but the relative speed in the case of downstream rowing into the relative speed in the case of downstream rowing divided by the speed of boat in still water. So this is expression for average speed in case of upstream and downstream rowing. Let's solve one more problem on boats and streams. It says that a man can row 30 kilometers upstream and 44 kilometers downstream in 10 hours. Also, he can row 40 kilometers upstream and 55 kilometers downstream in 13 hours. Find the rate of the current and the speed of the man in still water. So this is a problem which says that a man can row 30 kilometers upstream and 44 kilometers downstream in a total time of 10 hours. In the second case, it is given that he can row 40 kilometers upstream and 55 kilometers downstream in a total of 13 hours. We have to find out the rate of current, that is the speed of water flowing, and also the speed of man in still water. You can say that the speed of the boat. We have to find out the speed of the boat. So let's see the solution of this problem. Let us say that the upstream rate is equal to x km per hour and the downstream rate is equal to y kilometers per hour. So let us say that the upstream rate is x km per hour, the net relative speed is equal to x km per hour, and the downstream rate is y km per hour. This is the relative speed, that is not the speed of the boat or the speed of the water current. So from the first condition we get 30 by x plus 44 by y equal to 10 hours. This is the time taken to row upstream, this is the time taken to row downstream, and this total time is equal to 10 hours given in the problem. Also we get in the second case 40 by x plus 55 by y equal to 13. Again, this is the upstream rowing time, this is the downstream rowing time, and their addition would be equal to 13. 13 is the total time taken by upstream and downstream rowing. Now what we got to do is we are going to solve both these linear equations. But now to simplify these equations, what we are going to do is we are going to make a substitution. Let us say that u is equal to 1 by x and v is equal to 1 by y. So the equation reduces to 30u plus 44v equal to 10 and 40u plus 55v equal to 13. Now on solving these equations, we get the value of u equal to 1 by 5 and v equal to 1 by 11. We have substituted that u is equal to 1 by x and v is equal to 1 by y. So we get the values of x and y as x equal to 5 kilometers per hour and y equal to 11 kilometers per hour. So the upstream rowing rate is 5 kilometers per hour and the downstream rowing rate is 11 kilometers per hour. So what we can say, rate in the still water would be 5 plus 11 divided by 2, and which is equal to 8 kilometers per hour, and the rate of current is 11 minus 5 divided by 2, which is equal to 3 kilometers per hour. So the speed of the boat is equal to 8 kilometers per hour in still water, and the speed of the current is equal to 3 kilometers per hour. All the problems on boats and streams involve the use of upstream rowing and the downstream rowing. Upstream rowing is the rowing in which the direction of the boat and the water current are opposite, and so the relative speed would be Vb minus Vs, where Vb is the speed of the boat and Vs is the speed of the stream. And in the case of downstream rowing, we have the relative speed equal to Vb plus Vs. Vb is again the speed of the boat and Vs is the speed of the stream. So both these speeds get added up in case of downstream rowing. Now these two problems were just to give you an idea on upstream and downstream rowing. To solve such more problems, what you can do is log on to our website topcoaching.com, and on QuantZone you can get such other problems that involve the concepts of downstream and upstream rowing. Now I'm pretty sure you know what is a race. You must have participated in some other race. It might be a car race, it might be a bicycle race, or it might even be a race involving running. Now, what happens in a race? In a race, 2 or more people or 2 or more bodies take part and they have to cover a fixed distance. Now, the one who covers this distance in the least time is declared as a winner. It means that his speed of running is the maximum among the other participants. So this is what is a race about. Now let us first try to understand the races that take place in a straight track. Now why we are studying race? Because it involves the concept of distance, speed and time. It comes under this heading.
and also in many of the competitive exams such questions on races are asked. So it's important for us to clarify our understanding on races. So first of all, we are going to study about the straight tracks. Now let us say that we have got two participants A and B, and X denotes the initial point, it is the starting point, and Y denotes the final point. This is the point where both A and B has to reach so as to decide who is the winner. Now 1, 2, 3, go! Both these particles run towards Y. Clearly B has reached Y before A, so B is declared as a winner. So the person or the body which reaches the final point in the minimum time is called as the winner of the race, and everyone knows this rule. Now let us take different cases. We take a case when A gives B a start of x meters. In many problems you may find the statement that A gives B a start of x meters. Now what does this mean? This actually means that, let us say that xy is the total distance that has to be traveled. Now when A gives B a start of x meters, it means that B is standing x meters ahead of A. So A has given him a start of x meters. He has given B a privilege of standing x meters ahead of A, and he has challenged him for this race. Now this distance is x. So when A gives B a start of x meters, it means that B is standing x meters ahead of A. Now let us say that the total length of the track is L. So this distance from x to y is L. So this distance which B has to cover becomes L minus x. Now if B reaches y at a time which is lesser than the time taken by A, then of course B would be declared as a winner because A has given B a start of x meters as per the clause. So the distance that B need to cover is L minus x, but on the same time the distance A has to cover is L. Now this is what this statement means. When A gives B a start of x meters, it means that B is standing x meters ahead of A. A is standing at the initial point, so B's initial point would be x meters ahead of the initial point. And so the distance B has to travel becomes L minus x, where the distance A has to travel is L. So we can definitely see that A has given B a privilege. Now case 2 could be when A gives B a start of t seconds. Again A is giving some privilege to B, and that is he is giving him a start of t seconds. Now what does that mean? Again this is the racetrack. This is the initial point, this is a final point. Now when we say A gives B a start of t seconds, it means that he allows B to run for t seconds, and after t seconds A starts running. This is this way. B is running for t seconds, and then after t seconds A starts running. So you see that before A starts running, B already ran for t seconds, and after these t seconds A starts running. So of course B has been given a privilege of starting the race ahead of A. Once again B starts running, and after t seconds A starts running this way. And so we can say that A has given B a start of t seconds. It simply means A has allowed B to start running, and after t seconds A starts running. Now case 3 is A beats B by x meters. We are taking different cases, we are taking the different possibilities, and accordingly how the problem has to be approached. Now in this case A beats B by x meters. Now what does that mean? It simply means that in this race where x and y is the initial point, A and B are the two participants. Now A beats B by x meters. It simply means that by the time A reaches y, B hasn't finished its entire distance and he is x meters short of y. So A has beaten up B by x meters. This distance is x. So A has covered L meters, B has covered L minus x meters, and he is x meters short of reaching y, which is the final point. So whose speed is greater? Of course A's speed is greater because A has reached y at a lesser time, or x meters still have to be covered by B to reach the point y, and on the other hand A has already reached that point. So this is the case where A beats B by x meters. Now let's see case number 4. Now what does it say? Let's try to analyze that. Again we have the racetrack x to y. A and B are the two participants. Now A and B starts running, and A reaches the point Y and B is somewhere in between X and Y. By the time A reaches Y, B has reached this point. Now if we allow B to go from this point to this point, then the time taken by B to reach from this point to Y is t seconds, and this means that A beats B by t seconds. So if t more seconds were allowed to B, then it would have reached Y. So it simply means that if t more seconds were allowed to B, then it would have definitely reached Y. A has beaten B by t seconds, so A is ahead of B by t seconds. So these were some of the important cases regarding races on the straight track. Now we are going to study about the circular tracks. What happens in the circular track? Now let us say that we have a circular track in which again we have got two participants, A and B. Now if we say that these two participants are running in the same direction as this way, these two participants are running along this track and they are moving in the same direction. Now if I ask you, when do they meet first at any point on the track? So just after starting the race, what is the time at which these two participants meet each other? And if I ask you, when do they meet at the starting point first? So what is the time at which they meet each other but at the starting point? In this question it is, when do they meet first at any point on the track? But here we have to find out when do they meet at the starting point first. There are many meeting points of A and B, but we have to find out the time at which one of these meeting points is the starting point itself. So how to do that? Again, the two participants A and B, and they are moving in the same direction, this way. So the first time meeting at the starting point is LCM of L by A and L by B. So let us say that the length of the track is L units, the speed of A is A and the speed of B is B. So L by A is the time taken by A to complete one circle, and similarly L by B is the time taken by B to complete one revolution. Now the LCM of both these times would be the first time meeting at the starting point. This is the starting point. Now the first time meeting would be L divided by A minus B. Now why does this happen? Because the length of the track is L units and the relative speed would be A minus B. Why? Because they are moving in the same direction. So the speeds must be subtracted. Thus what we get, the first time meeting would be L by A minus B, and the first time meeting at the starting point would be LCM of L by A comma L by B. So this is the case when they are running in the same direction. Now let's take the case when A and B are moving in the opposite direction. So these two are moving in the opposite direction, and if they are moving along the periphery or along the circumference of the circle, then the first time meeting at the starting point is LCM of L by A and L by B. So again, L by A is the time taken by A to complete one revolution, and L by B is the time taken by B to complete one revolution. So the LCM of both these times will give us the value of time at which both of these particles or both of these bodies be at the starting point simultaneously. So the first time meeting at the starting point is LCM of L by A comma L by B. The first time meeting would be L divided by A plus B. Now why is A plus B? This is because they are moving in the opposite directions, and if they are moving in the opposite directions, then the speeds must get added, and so the first time would be the length of the track divided by the relative speed. Relative speed is A plus B, and so the first time meeting would be L by A plus B. So in both the cases, the first time meeting at the starting point would be LCM of L by A comma L by B, and the first time meeting would be L by A plus B when they are moving in the opposite direction, and L by A minus B when they are moving in the same direction. These are the two cases which are very frequently asked in competitive exams. Let us say that A and B are running in the same direction. So to meet for the first time at any point on the track, that time would be L by A minus B, and if A and B are running in the opposite directions, then that would be L by A plus B. Also, if we have got three runners and they are running in the same direction, then to meet for the first time at any point on the track, that would be LCM of L by A minus B comma L by B minus C. Now, to meet for the first time at the starting point, that would be LCM of L by A, L by B when A and B are running in the same direction, and this would be again the same LCM of L by A, L by B if A and B are running in the opposite directions. In case we have got three runners A, B and C running in the same direction, then to meet for the first time at the starting point, that would be LCM of L by A, L by B and L by C. So this is a table you got to remember to solve problems on circular tracks. Now, based on above theory, let's try to solve a few examples on races. The first problem says that in a 500-meter race, Marion Jones gives Zola Budd a start of 5 seconds and beat her by 20 meters. In another race of 500 meters, Marion beats Zola by 8 seconds. Find their speeds. So in this problem, we have been given that there's a 500-meter race in which Marion Jones, who's a runner, gives Zola Budd a start of 5 seconds. Now we already know what do we mean by a start of 5 seconds. And Marion Jones beats her by 20 meters. This is also we have studied. In another race of 500 meters, Marion beats Zola by 8 seconds. We have to find their speeds. So this involves the concept of straight tracks. So let's see the solution. Let us say that the speed of Zola is equal to z meters per second and the speed of Marion is m meters per second. So let us say that the speed of Zola is z and the speed of Marion is m. Now when Marion beats Zola by 8 seconds. Now what happens when Marion beats Zola by 8 seconds? 500 by m plus 8 would be equal to 500 by z. Now 500 by m is a time taken by Marion to complete the race. Similarly, 500 by z is a time taken by Zola. Now this difference would be equal to 8 seconds. So 500 by m plus 8 would be equal to 500 by z. Of course, Zola takes 8 seconds more in comparison to Marion. Now Marion Jones gives Zola Budd a start of 5 seconds and beats her by 20 meters. Now what does this statement mean? It means that Marion Jones has given Zola Budd a start of 5 seconds. So Marion Jones has allowed Zola Budd to start running for 5 seconds and then after that she starts running. And in this very race, she beats her by 20 meters. So Zola Budd is 20 meters short of the final point. So this gives us 500 by m plus 5 equal to 480 by z. The 500 by m is a time taken by Marion Jones to complete the race. Also Zola Budd actually runs 480 meters because 500 minus 20 would be 480. The total time taken by Zola Budd would be 480 by z, and this difference between their times is equal to 5 seconds because Marion Jones has given Zola Budd a start of 5 seconds. So the equation becomes 500 by m plus 5 equal to 480 by z. So we have got two equations, 500 by m plus 8 equal to 500 by z, and the second equation is 500 by m plus 5 equal to 480 by z. So when we solve them, what we get? Zola's speed equal to 20 by 3 meters per second, which is equal to 6.67 meters per second. So the speed of Zola Budd is equal to 6.67 meters per second. And similarly, we get the speed of Marion as equal to 500 by 67 meters per second. This is actually equal to 7.46 meters per second. So the speed of Zola Budd is 6.67 meters per second. The speed of Marion Jones is 7.46 meters per second. So simply using the concepts of race that we have studied in a straight track, we have solved this fifth problem. Let's solve one more problem. Two persons, Carl Lewis and Michael Johnson, run around a circular track 36 kilometers long at respective speeds of 10 meters per second and 15 meters per second. The question is, when will they meet each other for the first time? If they run in the opposite direction and if they run in the same direction. So this is a problem that involves the circular track. This circular track has a length of 36 kilometers and there are two persons, Carl Lewis and Michael Johnson, who are running along this track. The speed of Carl Lewis is 10 meters per second and the speed of Michael Johnson is 15 meters per second. We have to find out when are they going to meet each other for the first time. When they run in the opposite direction and when they run in the same direction. So let's look at the solution. The Carl's speed would be 10 into 18 by 5, that is equal to 36 km per hour. We have been given the speed of Carl in meters per second, so we have to convert it into kilometers per second as the length of the track is given in kilometers. So that is equal to 36 kilometers per hour. Similarly, the speed of Michael would be 15 into 18 by 5, that is equal to 54 kilometers per hour. So we have converted Carl's speed into kilometer per hour and also converted Michael's speed into kilometers per hour. Now the length of track is given to be 36 kilometers. Now we have to find out when they are going to meet for the first time, when they run in the opposite direction and when they run in the same direction. So let's take the first case, that is opposite direction. In this very case, time taken would be length of the track divided by the relative speed. Relative speed in this case would be 36 plus 54 because they are running in the opposite direction. So time taken is 36 divided by 36 plus 54, which is equal to 4 by 10, or which is equal to 24 minutes. Thus, the time taken for Carl and Michael to meet each other if they run in the opposite direction is 24 minutes. If they run in the same direction, then the time taken would be 36 divided by 54 minus 36 because they are running in the same direction. Therefore, their speeds get subtracted. So, time taken is 36 divided by 54 minus 36, and which gives a value as 2 hours. So, if they are running in the same direction, then they would take 2 hours to meet each other for the first time. And if they are running in the opposite direction, then they would take 24 minutes to meet each other. So, this was all about our chapter on time, distance and speed. I really hope that you have enjoyed this lecture and you have understood all the concepts that have been explained throughout this chapter. The best way of being perfect in time, distance and speed is again the same rule, and that is practice, practice and practice. And for that, visit our site topcoaching.com and try to solve as many problems you can on this chapter. Thank you.